Unsung Murder Ballads discusses topics of a graphic nature and in graphic detail, and may not be suitable for children under 13. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to day 3 of the 7 Deadly Sins Countdown to Halloween. I am Janice Dead.
I'm Jameson Dead.
And I'm Joyous Dead.
And tonight, Joyous will be regaling us with the tale of the deadly sin of Sloth, I believe, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
All right, we'll take it away, Miss Joyous.
All right. We start tonight's story in a way that we often start, with a very, very tragic childhood. Anthony Edward Sowell was born and raised in East Cleveland, Ohio in 1959. He was one of 7 children born to a single parent, Claudia, also called Gertrude Garrison.
7 kids to a single mother. Oh my God.
Yeah, and it gets worse. You think 7's bad? It gets worse.
Okay.
So
what is it with Ohio? That's where the Vera Jo case was.
Yeah, and it has some things that I also picked up on that were similar, and also, I think a lot of things remind us of the Sylvia Likens case, and this one also reminded me of that. When Sowell was young, his oldest sister passed away following a chronic illness, and his oldest sister also had 7 children, just like her mother.
Oh my God.
Runs in the family, I guess. Fertility. That's a lot. So all of those 7 children then moved into Claudia's, so their grandmother's house. So there are a total of 13 children in this house now.
Well, so she was old enough to have had 7 kids. So that means
which you can do pretty fast if you really work at it.
That's true. But that means some of the children are at least late teens.
Yeah, so some of them I think are a little older. Some of them are still young. So I think probably grandma spaced out the children. So that's Gertrude. She probably had the children more spaced out. And then I think we have to assume that her daughter had them a lot faster.
Yeah, it had to have been rapid fire. Couple Irish twins.
Couple Irish twins. Yeah, for real. Or maybe some twins. I don't know. I didn't look into the children. Now there are 13 children, still with a single parent, so obviously there's not a lot of attention to go around. There's not a lot of love or resources. It's not great for these kids. And unfortunately, their grandmother, or so for some of them mother and some of them grandmother, did not treat them all fairly. She had a large preference for her own children and was violent and abusive to her grandchildren.
Wow.
Really, really sad. Sad for all of these children, and it only gets worse from here.
Yeah, I wonder if she blamed the grandchildren for the state of her life after that.
Probably to a certain degree, yes.
Yeah.
According to this is now Sowell's niece, so Gertrude's granddaughter, Leona Davis, who gave a lot of account about what went on in this house. Gertrude subjected all the children to physical abuse, while her own children would watch from adjacent rooms. In one incident, she forced her granddaughter, Davis, to strip naked in front of all of the other children and then whipped her with electrical cords until she bled.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're not talking normal run-of-the-mill abuse here. She is full out vicious, reminding us of the Vera Jo case. She is really, really horrendous. In this house where abuse was normalized and accepted, Sowell himself began raping his niece on an almost daily basis for 2 years, starting when she was 10 years old.
That's just sick.
And this was a normal occurrence in this household. All of Sowell's brothers will also participated in raping their niece.
It's all the same girl?
So she's the one who spoke out. So there's a lot of account from her, and I don't know how much this was happening to the other children, but this was clearly evident that it was normalized in this house.
So fucked up. Oh my God.
So fucked up. And so these children are being raised in an environment that this is either a blind eye is being turned to this, or it's even being encouraged because they were encouraged to be abusive to each other.
Yeah, they probably don't even think of each other as even remotely equal. That's so fucked up.
Yeah, not at all, because that's how their mother treated them, and That's what you learn growing up. That's what your reality is, and it's sad and fucked up. That is what it was like for him as a child. So when he turned 18 in 1978, he entered the Marine Corps, so at least getting him away from his family. He attended recruit training at Parris Island in South Carolina, and then he was further trained as an electrician at Camp Lejeune in North Carolina. On July 13th, this is about 6 months later, he was assigned to the 2nd Marine Aircraft Wing at the Marine Corps Air Station Cherry Point, which is also in North Carolina. And then in 1980, he spent a year overseas and then returned back to Cherry Point. He was also ordered to the Marine Corps base Camp Butler in Okinawa, Japan in 1984. So this is now 6 years into his time in the Marine Corps. And then a year later, he transferred to Camp Pendleton in California for only 3 days until he was discharged on January 18th, 1985.
Yeah, it's
So
funny. The 3 days, it's clearly because he was in Okinawa before that. So that's just basically they're like, well, we're going to finish up your paperwork, but we're not going to do it here in Japan. We're going to send you back to the States. So that makes sense.
Oh, okay. That's good context.
Yeah, because I mean, almost every one of those bases you mentioned, I have been at, with the exception of Cherry Point. I never got to go to Cherry Point, but that makes the most sense. You wouldn't finish someone up in Japan or Okinawa and then put them on a plane and say, good luck. You would get them back to a U.S. base and then let them out. So
that makes sense. Yeah. So during his 7-year Marine Corps career, he received a Good Conduct Medal with a Service Star, a Sea Service Deployment Ribbon, a Certificate of Commendation, a Meritorious Mast, and 2 letters of appreciation. So he was getting a lot of recognition for being just an outstanding guy in the Marine Corps. By all account of those he served with, there was nothing to suggest that he was anything other than a very normal guy. He kept to himself and was rather quiet, and most of those he served with had a relatively positive opinion of him, which, as we'll see, was a real bad judge of character.
Or there was something about the structure of being told what to do and when to do it that worked for him.
That's true, and that does end up working for a lot of people, is that structure helps.
Right, and it's not just some structure. Like the Marine Corps is nothing but structure. Like,
yeah,
you're literally told not only when and where to be, but like how fast. Like it's not like as long as you do what you're told, you'll be successful. And a lot of what you mentioned, yeah, that's just him doing what he's told. The Meritorious Mast are like letters of appreciation. Those are saying, hey, thank you for doing a good or maybe even above average job, but it's not a medal. And that ribbon is just because he served overseas. He was sent there, but he didn't do anything special over there to get that.
Gotcha.
I have a Sea Service ribbon, you know what I mean, or medal or whatever, but the point is that's just because you served overseas.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's not you fighting in combat. That's just you were sent to another country. So so a lot of I'm not saying he sucked, but I'm just saying it sounds like he did what he was told when he was supposed to do it, and he probably did it well. So that may not have been a bad judge of character under those circumstances.
That's fair. That's a good point.
I don't mean to judge this guy or give him the benefit of the doubt because we know where this is going to end up going. But yeah. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
No, thank you. That's important context. I think it helps to know that there's a vast difference in this man's behavior when he is in this controlled environment and then when he is left to his own devices.
100% true.
So he returns to civilian life 4 years after his discharge in 1989. We encounter his first known victim. He picked up a woman at a bar.
4 years?
4 years, yeah. So he was.
Okay.
I mean, there's definitely the adjustment back to real life. I mean, Janice, you could probably speak to that better than me.
Yeah, it took me, I would say 6 months to get used to just living among and as a civilian. But considering where this guy is going to have to go to start murdering, it probably took 4 years for him to completely unravel. Because I remember being out in public and everybody was super loud, or out in public, but we were in a building. And in the Marine Corps, if everything was really loud, like all the other Marines, you could yell out at ease, like really loud, and everyone would suddenly get really quiet. I almost did that in a store.
Oh, wow.
So it
Because you were
took
like, everybody shut up.
it took a long time to adjust to the chaos of civilian life. So then you add into the fact that this guy is now a civilian. He has no structure. He has no one telling him where to be and what to do. He's unraveling. And that culture shock of being back as a civilian was probably the start of it. But so I can see where it would have taken 4 years before he fully lost control and killed somebody.
That's fair. And I'll also highlight that while it's the first victim, it's the first known victim, the first confirmed victim.
That's
So
also true. Yes.
there are a few other, and I'm not going to get too much into, but there are a few other cases that he, was a suspect for that I won't talk about because they weren't so confirmed, but
Makes sense.
but it was some time. So yeah, 4 years later in 1989, we encounter the first known victim. So he picked her up at a bar and invited her back to his place for a couple more drinks. Famous last words.
Sounds like the case we did yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, this sounds like a lot of cases. This is, don't go to a man's house.
Yeah, especially if you don't know him very well, and he's
Yeah.
offering you stuff that will make you have less judgment.
Yeah, men are terrifying.
So are some women.
No, trust me, some women are also terrifying. Not to stereotype, but don't go to anyone's house if you don't know them.
That's true. True.
And also not to victim blame here, because God knows I have gone to men's houses when I did not know them very well, and I was just lucky that nothing happened.
And it's funny because I have been that charismatic guy that's convinced women to go home with me that didn't really know me. So
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, we can't judge.
It can go right a million times, and then the one time it'll go wrong. So,
And that's the time we talk about.
But
on
it
the
just
podcast.
takes that one time. That's all.
absolutely. And then we have a podcast about it.
Exactly.
So he brings her back to his house, and then after a few more drinks, she's pretty disoriented, and he bound her hands and feet with a tie and a belt, and then gagged her with a rag, and she was 3 months pregnant, and he raped her.
Oh, come on. That's just sick.
It can't surprise you that much when he was raping his niece, and he didn't believe there was anything wrong with that.
No, he doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't see anything wrong with it.
The only silver lining in this situation is that she, unlike some other cases that we'll talk about, she was able to escape. So she got out. And later she told police, he choked me real hard because my body started tingling. I thought I was going to die. So
she almost passed out.
She almost passed out. Yeah. So he was not just, binding hands and feet. He was strangling. And this is common in his cases. He strangles.
Yeah, it's part of his MO.
It's part of his MO.
Now, does it say how she got away?
No, they didn't say exactly how she got away.
Okay.
We don't know necessarily if he was, attempting to keep her. In other cases, there are charges of kidnapping. So this particular case was not, kidnapping wasn't highlighted. But it could have been that she just convinced him. She said, I won't. I think this one actually, she said she wouldn't tell anybody if he just let her go and let her live. And he let her go.
That's lucky on her part right there. If
Lucky
that's the
on her
case.
part and stupid on his part.
Well, very stupid on his part. But he's still figuring it out if this is his first known victim.
Exactly. So she made it out and immediately went to police. As she should, because, you got to do something about stuff like this.
Exactly. You can't let the next person suffer.
Exactly. After this offense, the investigation actually took a really long time. The police were struggling to find enough evidence and actually press charges. They were dragging their feet, which likely emboldened him to feel like he could keep getting away with stuff like this because, this is a pretty clear-cut case and no one's coming to get him for it. So he's feeling a little powerful and feeling like he can keep doing this.
Exactly.
So he ends up doing a very similar thing to another woman, holding her at his house, binding, strangling, and she also got away. So he's still at a point where he doesn't even feel like he has to keep them confined. He still thinks that he can do this and let the person go and nothing will ever happen to him.
Which is just a crazy idea in someone's head. Like, how do you ever come to that thought? There's a difference between them and us, but still, that's just crazy.
It is. It's insane. So unfortunately, after she went through this, she was too scared to testify against him. Unfortunately, they couldn't press charges. They couldn't use this as evidence to put him away because she was too scared to testify, which is, very understandable. She must have been so scared of this man, and God knows what he had told her when he had held her. So
that's true.
After this, he assaulted a third woman who he attempted to rape, but she was able to fight him off and get away. So she also went directly to the police.
And it's amazing to me that they haven't arrested him yet.
It's incredible that they haven't arrested him. Yes. We can talk about failures of police. We can talk about how hard it is for victims of sexual assault and victims of rape to speak out because of so many reasons of not being believed, of fear of retaliation. There's a lot of reasons why this can be hard, but also I wish something had been done with his first victim.
Oh, yeah, it would have saved a lot of lives.
Yeah. The third woman was able to escape, and she luckily agreed to testify. During this case, he was charged with kidnapping, rape, and attempted rape. So this was for the multiple offenses.
Mm-hmm.
And he pled guilty only to the attempted rape. So that was of the third woman. And so that's what he ended up being convicted of. He had some really bullshit arguments about why it wasn't kidnapping because he said, oh, these women came to my house willingly, so it wasn't kidnapping when I held them there against their will.
Isn't there a term for that, holding someone against their will?
I think it is. It's still kidnapping, but it was a real bullshit excuse that he shouldn't have gotten away with.
No, there was a different term, and because this is taking place in like the 80s and the 90s, I think. So
yeah,
I don't remember, like unlawful detainment or something. There's another term, and maybe it's been updated since, but either way, you're right. It should still be kidnapping. But...
Exactly, and it is. So it's bullshit, but that it is what it is. He pled guilty to the attempted rape, and he was sentenced to 15 years in prison.
Wow.
Yeah, so he served the full 15 years. He was applying for parole at every opportunity.
Which was what you would do in that circumstance, but I'm surprised he got 15 years for it. That's unusual in these cases.
Yeah, for attempted rape, it is kind of surprising that he got that much.
Yeah. And the term was false imprisonment.
Oh, false
imprisonment.
imprisonment.
I was just about to say that. It came to me. I was like,
All right, well, the more you know. So he served 15 years in prison, repeatedly trying to get out on parole, showing no remorse for what he had done, and really not understanding the gravity of what he had done. So obviously they never let him out because he was a clear danger, and it's good that they kept him in that long, but they couldn't keep him there any longer because he was only sentenced to 15 years.
Right.
So
which sucks for everyone after.
It really sucks because it sounds like everyone evaluating him thought that he belonged in there. He was a danger to society, and he should have been staying in there.
It's funny because we did that case about the guy in Russia with the dolls, and it's too bad that we can't adopt something like that here, where you just keep him indefinitely.
Yeah, I think maybe that's a characteristic of the, if you take the insanity plea or the, unfit to stand trial plea.
That's true.
Think that because then it is just you're actually being evaluated for your progress as a person rather than number of years served.
Right. That's true.
Which makes more sense in general.
No, you're right. And it makes a lot more sense. And it's too bad we don't adopt more of that, other than I don't see us putting the money into it that it would require.
It takes resources to create, although we waste a fuckload of money on prisons and on for-profit prisons.
Right. But convincing more than half the country that that's a bad idea is the tough part.
Right. Or, getting the lobbyists for the for-profit prisons to, get them the fuck out of Congress and get these politicians to give a shit. That's the real obstacle.
True. Very true. Sorry.
Don't let me get political. After his 15 years, he was released in 2005. Obviously, struggled to adjust back to life. He struggled to find work, and because of that, struggled to find housing. So he ended up moving back in with his parents. He ended up working at a factory for 2 years until 2007, and then he began collecting unemployment benefits.
Okay, so at that point, he's not working.
Yeah, so he's no longer working. There's no sort of structure in his life. He's just collecting benefits and
living
having no structure, wandering around
with his mother and his family.
Yeah, living with his mother and his family. So regressing, certainly.
Definitely.
Neighbors in the area said that one of the ways he earned a living was collecting and selling scrap metal. They saw him doing this and they made note of it, but they were like, whatever, it's not illegal. So do what you got to do.
It's funny that's what he was doing, because around that same time period, places I worked, they were very worried about the metal on certain items in our like parking lots and our generators and things like that, because people were stealing metal for scrap metal to sell as scrap metal.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, like some of it was like the copper piping.
Copper's really valuable.
Which is weird, because don't we make pennies out of that?
Yeah, but pennies have so little copper. And it's like if you collect like, this is weird, but I was literally just looking this up the other day. I was Googling like, how much does copper cost? If you get a lot of it, it's valuable as a metal, but like obviously pennies aren't worth very much.
Yeah, that's why I was always confused by it. But you're right. If it's pure copper, it's probably worth a bit more.
Right, yeah. Exactly. It's like it's worth a lot. It has a lot of value in electronics and stuff. Anyway, around the same time, there were a lot of complaints to the health department about this neighborhood of a foul smell. And there were a few different theories. There were some stores around, there's some dumpsters if there's food places around. So, but it was notable that there were a lot of complaints about a foul smell.
Awesome.
So
I don't know what I would do if my whole neighborhood stunk of something.
Man, don't live in the city.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, you're right.
I'm like, man, the city in the summertime when the sun beats down, oh man, it's stinky.
No, I'm good. Thanks. I live in the outskirts of a city. I'm good.
Yeah. During this time, Sowell starts to date again. So starting to live for him a normal life. So he joins a lot of online dating services where he claims to be a master looking for a submissive person to train.
Wow.
So there's like coded language for BDSM. Obviously, knowing his prior habits, this is not safe. This is not BDSM. This is incredibly dangerous. It seems like he's framing his sexual desires for control, for physical strangulation and physical harm into this coded language that he's using in order to meet women.
Yeah, he's pre-framing an alibi too, if you think about it.
Oh, 100%.
Yep.
I think he probably found this language and he said, oh, that's what I am. I'm not a rapist. I'm a master.
Yeah, I can see that.
Which, is common enough in like the BDSM kink community that people will try to pass themselves off as, a master, quote unquote, when they're actually just abusers.
Yeah, they're just sadists.
They are just monsters.
Yeah. And that's not to judge anyone in the BDSM community. I mean, as long as you're both consenting and you're both okay with it, we're not judging. But yeah, there are those in there that are going to abuse that situation.
100%.
Yeah, I actually watched something many, many years ago. It was a documentary that was being done from inside a BDSM brothel of sorts. There was no sex, but like men would come in to be dominated.
Oh yeah, very big thing.
Yeah, and one of the things that happened during this little documentary that I watched was one guy really was fighting back a little too hard, and the woman stopped the whole thing. She was like, "You're not here to be dominated. You're here to play some stupid fucking game. Get out."
Yeah, absolutely.
I was like, hell yeah.
It's a responsibility that you have as, like a dominant, is to be judging whether or not the person that you are dominating is actually consenting, or like whether it's safe, sane, and consensual is often used.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And if someone is actually just wanting to be literally harmed, then that's no longer sane. Not to out myself, but I know a little bit about that.
Hey, we all have our things, so you don't have to worry about that. I don't want to talk about my things, and you don't have to talk about your things.
Anyway, so back to the case. He did have a little bit of success on these online dating services. He ends up dating a woman named Lori Frazier, who is actually a niece of the Cleveland mayor. So she starts a relationship with Sowell shortly after his release from prison. It's assumed that she didn't really know about his background. She actually moved in with him and lived in the house with he and his parents.
Wow. Now you keep saying his parents. Is the father back in the picture? Because it was a single mother when he was a kid.
So it's actually unclear. So
okay.
It appears that there's a stepmother involved.
Oh, okay. So, all right. So this might be just something completely different.
Yeah, this might be a different home. I don't think this is the same as his childhood home.
Okay.
Lori, while living in this house, so later claimed that she smelled decaying bodies in the home.
Wow.
She smelled a distinct smell.
Well, I've smelled dead animals. I haven't been near a dead human, but if it smells anything like that, yeah, that's distinct.
Very distinct. I mean, I would assume they smell the same because otherwise, why would she recognize them?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I would assume decomposition smells like decomposition.
Yeah, I would assume so too.
So she brought this up to Sowell, and he said that the smell was actually coming from his stepmother.
What?
Which rude, first of all.
The skank not be washing.
Yeah, said that just thought she's nasty or something. Rude.
Wow.
The people you're living with. Eventually, they break up, and she moves out. And she then claimed that she thought the smell was coming from Ray's sausage shop, which was located next door.
Which would make sense.
It would make sense. There's probably a lot of stinky, nasty meat in the dumpster.
Yeah, exactly. Like a lot
we
of
are
that
once
shit.
again having a little bit of a Sweeney Todd situation.
That's awesome.
That's my favorite murder case.
The one we did yesterday, you mean? Yes, the fact that these connect.
Yes, I'm living for it. She claims the smell's coming from Ray's sausage shop, which, ends up being really fucked up for the sausage shop because there were complaints filed to the city health department and, damages they had to buy new equipment. They had to really deal with the public image that came from this claim of this smell.
Yeah, like that would suck.
Really, really bad for the business. In a video interview with Lori later, she mentions that she moved out in 2007, but in a published article, she said to have been living there until 2008. So it's not exactly clear how long she was living there. But so it was 2 or 3 years that she was living in this house. So just make a little mental note of that.
That's a long time to be living in a smell like that.
Long time to be living in a stanky house.
Yeah, I don't know that I would have been able to do it.
No, not for this stanky man. But, sometimes we need a place to live. So, I don't know what's going on in her head.
Yeah, that's true.
She'd be like that sometimes. This brings us up to September 2009. So Sowell invites a woman named Latundra Billups up to his home for a drink. So clearly his established pattern.
Latundra, that's an interesting name.
It is an interesting name. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So on September 22nd, she told police that after a few drinks, he became angry and started hitting, choking, and raping her as she passed out. Clear pattern.
That's
wow. Jesus
holy
Christ.
crap.
He really has an MO. The next month, on October 29th, police arrived at his home with an arrest warrant, and he was not there, but he was located and arrested 2 days later.
Okay, for a moment, I was going to be like, the police were just like, well, I guess he gets away with it.
No, he does not get away with it. So we're glad about this. So he was located, he was arrested, and at this point, they can get a search warrant of his house.
That's going to turn up a whole lot of stuff.
You are correct, unfortunately. The bodies of 2 women were found buried in a shallow grave in the basement, and the bodies of 4 other women were found on the 3rd floor of the home. So probably there's the smell that we're blaming on the stepmother. And there were also bodies found in the crawl spaces of the home.
Oh
Wow.
God.
That's awesome. Can you imagine?
So, so he is not even bothering to try to hide these bodies. He is just, shoving them into spaces in his home, shallow graves. He is just finishing with these poor women and just, dumping them, just keeping them in the house.
I can't imagine like stepping over or past a dead body on my way to the bathroom every day.
No way.
Ugh.
Uh-uh.
Or just the smell.
Or imagine if you tripped over it.
That would be you gotta wonder how he would respond to that. Like he would kick it, like, get out of my way.
Probably.
Yeah, if he's just like tired of it. It's just so gross to think of.
Yeah, the whole thing is so messed up.
Yeah, it's real fucking nasty this time, guys. I'm so sorry.
No, it's it's like a house of horrors. Thanks.
It is a house of horrors. So that's not all. After digging in the backyard, investigators found 3 more bodies and the partial remains of a 4th.
Wow. So he was doing this to a lot of people for a while.
A lot of people. So, and then the final remains found were a human skull was found in a bucket inside the house. And that brings the total body count to 11 bodies that were found in this home.
Wow. In a bucket.
In a bucket.
Just left there. Like
how demeaning.
Yeah, like I'm just trying to picture, was it like a Home Depot style bucket or was it like a trash bucket?
I unfortunately saw the picture. More of a Home Depot bucket vibe.
Gotcha. Fucking crazy.
Yeah, it's really upsetting and I hate it.
You're like, I hate that I'll remember that.
Yeah, I hate that that's in my mind now, but
it's interesting that you could see it because so many times now, and I think they passed a law, like people used to be able to just go to police stations or go online or whatever it was and see crime scene photos. And they've stopped that. You can't just request copies of it or whatever people were doing. So I'm surprised that that's still out there. But then again, with the internet, I'm surprised. And I shouldn't be surprised.
If it's been on the internet, it's still on the internet. Don't post it if you don't want it to live forever. Autopsy reports of these bodies found that most of the victims were killed by manual strangulation, and others were gagged or had ligatures on their bodies when they were discovered. Ligatures being marks of being tied, so the marks of having had ropes on your wrist, things like that.
My first thought was how hard it is to strangle someone, but at the same time, because this is about sloth, I'm actually thinking that that's the laziest way to kill someone because you don't have to bother to clean anything up or grab a weapon. You just sit there for a little while.
Right. Yeah. Nothing to clean up. And he was in the military, so I'm sure he knows of the easiest way to, I don't know the right word, but like to down somebody, to choke them out.
Yeah, that's a big one.
It feels like basic training.
Yeah, it's part of the I can't remember the exact term, but it's part of the self-defense thing. You go for certain aspects of the neck you're basically trying to cut off the blood flow more than you are the airflow. So yeah.
Yep. It makes sense. It is a lazy way. And considering that these women were, for the most part, we don't know in all the cases, but it's a pattern that he would get them intoxicated. Probably harder for them to fight back.
I'm wondering how many of them were drug addicts that he enticed inside with the offer of drugs or alcohol.
There were some cases of that. So actually, you're predicting my next line. So there were other cases of when he raped 3 other women, luring them to his property with an invitation to smoke crack cocaine with him. So yeah. he did prey on the vulnerable a lot.
That's fucking. It sucks that you wish you could go back and save people because it's so frustrating how obvious the danger was.
Mm-hmm.
That one woman who got out that like lived with him, she is fucking lucky. Holy shit.
And it's very, in my mind, there is some suspicion of, well, I'll start talking about, when these people went missing, and it's awful close to when she was living there. So there's some suspicious stuff there. On November 5th, 2009, they identified 2 of the 11 victims found in the home. All of his victims were African American or Black women of an either slender or morbidly obese build. So nothing in between. He was only, for some reason, only attacking very, very, very thin women or very, very, very large women, and nothing in
Talk about
between.
going to the extremes there.
Yeah, but
Very much so.
But again, it makes sense. You can overpower a very small woman simply because she doesn't have the strength to fight back, and the very heavy ones can't fight for that long.
True. Yeah.
Their stamina is going to be lower.
Yeah, and so all of them, except for one, were mothers and ranged in age from 25 to 53. So that's, yeah, a large, he has an interesting range of victims here. Really sad to think that, so 10 of 11 were mothers, and so leave behind children and families.
It's not something we would do on this podcast, and I don't know how much work it would take to do it, but it would be interesting to find the children of these women and find out what they're doing today. You know what
I mean? I just hope they're living peaceful lives as well as they can. So one of the victims, named Kim Yvette Smith, she was 44. She was the first victim that was tied to him. She was reported missing in 2009 by her family, and her body was discovered in his backyard. And then LaShonda Long, who was 25 years old, she went missing in August 2008, and she was the youngest of his victims. So her skull was the one found wrapped inside of the bucket in his basement.
Oh, lovely.
I know we've talked about this before, but the fact that the police didn't catch on to all these missing persons goes back to the whole race and them not taking it as serious because they're not, middle-class white people. It's so frustrating.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is not an affluent neighborhood where these things are happening. There's gotta be, the stench.
Yeah. Had that happened in I don't know, Hollywood, you know what I mean? Something would have been different.
Yeah. Or for our locals, if this happened in Newton, yeah. Or be very different.
That's how John Wayne Gacy got caught. He was living in white suburbia, had all those bodies under his house, and people complained about the smell. Yet same situation, different neighborhood, different outcome.
Right.
Crazy.
So next, Tonya Carmichael, who was 53 years old. She had disappeared more than a year earlier than all these bodies were discovered. So she had been missing for a full year. Her body was found buried in his backyard. She appeared to have been strangled and was identified through DNA evidence. She had been reported missing in December 2008.
Three in a year, 3.5 a year.
Yeah, he's really accelerating, and a lot of this is taking place, it seems like, maybe right after his girlfriend had moved out.
Yeah, that's true. And you did say that there was some weirdness with her saying 2009, right? Or was it 2000?
Well, so she said initially that she moved out in 2007, but some reports said that she moved out in 2008. So a lot of these are late 2008, so I wouldn't think that happened while she was there. But obviously some of these happened while she was there because she was there when the smell was there.
Right. Oh, that's true. You're right.
Right. So
this guy.
Yeah. Fucking insane. So next, Talasia Fortson, who was 31 years old. She had disappeared 5 months before the bodies were found. Although she had been missing since June, her mother did not report her missing until she heard this news coverage about the dead bodies found. The reason that her mother had not reported her missing is because she knew her daughter was a drug user. And unfortunately, it was normal for her to disappear for sort of 3 to 5 days at a time when she was on, when she had a relapse and, went on a bender with drug use. So it was normal for her to be gone. And so while her mother worried, it didn't start really red flagging until she heard about this case and about the bodies being found.
Oh,
that's so unfortunate because, you try not to worry because you're used to the behavior. And then the one time you should be worrying, when you start to, it's too late.
It's so hard.
Well, I don't think there was anything her mother could have done. If she had reported her right away, the police wouldn't have found her.
No, probably not. Next, on November 8th, 2009, 3 more bodies were identified. Crystal Dozier was a 38-year-old woman who went missing in May 2007. So this is one of the earlier ones.
Oh, wow.
So she was a mother of 7 children.
Oh, my God.
A lot of those in this story. And she lived in the same area where her body was discovered. So she lived in the neighborhood.
She was his neighbor. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Her family had reported her missing to the Cleveland Police Department, and this was not the first time she had gone missing. And in this case, the family accused the police of failing to investigate, and the family took it upon themselves to post flyers, call hospitals, and do whatever they could as a family to try and find her.
I'm afraid you're about to say, and this asshole helped them look or hang flyers or something.
No, nothing,
Oh, that
nothing
would
about
have
that.
been really sick.
Just sad that they're doing the job of the police department, and they're doing what they can to try and find her, but unfortunately they did not find her.
And unfortunately, it goes back to the police not taking a case like that seriously because of previous instances.
Yeah, 100%.
You just said it yourself, though. She had a history of just disappearing, so you can kind of see where the police were going with it. But yes, they should have taken more action.
So the next victim was Michelle Mason, who was 45 years old, and she was last seen in October of 2008. She also had lived in the area, and according to records, when her family reported her missing, the police did conduct a full investigation and did not find her. So they did do a full investigation in that case.
Interesting. I wonder why. I wonder what the difference was.
Yeah, I don't know if that was because she didn't have a past of going missing, or I guess we don't know.
What blows my mind is I can see police saying to about one person, okay, she'll probably turn up. But after the third or fourth, you'd think maybe you'd look into it a bit more.
You would think. But I guess there's probably a lot of people who go missing, who are reported missing, and this might not have even appeared to be a pattern.
Yeah, and I know it's Cleveland, and I don't know how big Cleveland actually is or how many people go missing in Cleveland every year, but I'm at the same area. I don't know. That's just weird to me.
So there are records of other missing people, going back to his release from prison in June 2005. And so all of those records of missing people were searched, and the DNA was tested and attempted to match it to the bodies that were found at Sowell's house.
Mm-hmm.
So during this time, protesters appeared at the house holding posters of missing loved ones. And they gathered outside the home, hoping that their loved ones, in a way, hoping that they would at least know what had happened to their loved ones. Police even reopened several cold cases from the late 1980s, so that would have been right before he went into prison. Some of them had, evidence of strangulation, which was obviously his MO, and these cases had stopped around 1989, which is around the time that he was arrested.
Wow, which would make sense for him as the suspect, yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so the FBI at the time had been gathering information to see if Sowell may have been linked to those unsolved cases, since he committed so many murders.
That whole thing's fucking crazy. Holy shit.
Literally insane.
Like, it's almost as bad as Israel Keys. Like, in fact,
yes.
2005, 2007, Israel Keys could have been traveling through that part of the city. Some of those missing people may be him.
Yeah, and we'll never know.
And we'll never know.
So at the time of his arrest, he was 50 years old, and he had been living in that location, so he is out of prison for 4 years.
Only 4 years.
Only
That's it?
4 years, and he did most of this towards the end of that, too. So he was held on a $5 million bond, so he's obviously not going to be bailed out.
Definitely not.
Definitely not.
And if someone bails him out for that, we need to look at them.
Yeah, that person should also be arrested. His trial originally was supposed to start on June 2nd, 2010, but it was repeatedly delayed. So first to September 7th to give his attorneys more time to prepare, and then to February 14th, 2011, and then to May 2nd of 2011 at the request of his attorneys, who wanted more time to examine thousands of records and hours of surveillance video footage shot from the property next door. So, assumedly, they're looking to see if there was anyone else in the area who could have committed these, who could have put the bodies there. They're obviously grasping at anything they can, that's their job. So they have to do that.
Yeah, I was just thinking that, like, could you imagine if that was actually the truth? Like, they found a third party burying bodies in this guy's backyard.
Right? And I guess they have to look but it's like the rest of these bodies are in his house.
Yeah, exactly. The head in the bucket's a big one.
That is a big, big old sign there. Big old red flag.
Yeah. Big arrow pointing at me.
Literally. So after this, it was again delayed to June 6th. So this is now a full year from the original trial date at the request of the prosecution because of scheduling conflicts. So it finally starts then, June 6th, 2011. He is initially charged with 11 counts of aggravated murder and 74 counts of rape, kidnapping, tampering with evidence, and abuse of a corpse.
Good.
That sounds about right. That's a good...
Yeah,
that's what he did.
That's a good starting point.
Yep. So he pleaded, I'll give you one guess.
Not guilty by reason of insanity.
That is correct.
Ding,
He
ding,
pled
ding,
not
ding, ding.
guilty by reason of insanity.
Wow.
But later changed his plea to simply not guilty,
Okay.
which is an interesting plan. So on July 22nd, 2011, so a month and a half later, he was convicted on all but 2 counts. So he was convicted on counts including the murders of the 11 women whose bodies were found in his house in 2009.
That's good. I mean, I'm dying to see what he actually gets.
We love to see that he was convicted. So on August 10th, the jurors recommended the death penalty.
Oh, good.
And on August 12th, 2 days later, Judge Dick Ambrose upheld the jury's recommendation. They're sending him to death row.
Question is he still there?
He'll sit there for another 20 years.
Yeah.
You about to find out. So on September 14th, he was placed on death row and imprisoned at Chillicothe, I could be saying that wrong, correctional institution. That November, his lawyers filed a notice of appeal. So they're going to try to appeal this result.
For the next 20 years.
They're going to try as hard as they can.
Yeah.
So initially, his execution was set for October 2012.
Oh,
but
that's fast.
that March, yeah, it's pretty fast. Usually people are waiting a long time. But it happens to be that March, a motion for stay of execution was filed because of his appeals. And the motion was granted in April. Pending the appeal, he is no longer scheduled for execution.
Right. Which is, I think, how that works.
Yes, makes sense. So he gets new lawyers. So in October, his new lawyers, Jeffrey M. Gamstow and Erica Cunliffe of the Cuyahoga County Public Defender's Office.
Wow, good job pronouncing that one. Holy shit.
That was flawless.
Oh, thank you
That
very
was awesome.
much. Cultured. His new lawyers appealed to have his conviction and his death sentence overturned on 21 of the 74 points. So their main points here being that he did not receive a fair trial because of the extensive media coverage. So that would have biased the jury. It was said that the media attention was overwhelming, generating thousands of news stories, and local coverage was both frenzied and sustained.
Okay.
There was also a claim that that it was an issue that the courtroom has been closed to the public during one of the evidentiary hearings and while the jury was picked, which actually the courtroom being closed was at a request of his lawyers originally. So this all being summarized in the fact that they said that he had received lousy legal representation from his original lawyers. So his new lawyers believe that the old lawyers should have instructed him to plead guilty to killing the women and then focus their efforts on preventing him from getting the death penalty. So they're claiming an appeal based on basically that Sowell received bad advice from his lawyers.
That, which I in my mind, that's such bullshit, but I mean, I guess, but
yeah,
all they're really going to do is maybe save him from the death penalty.
right. And it's like, what is What is the point?
I
Yeah.
was waiting for you to say that he was going to represent himself.
Oh my God. Be hard to plead insanity and then
and then represent yourself.
try to represent yourself. Yeah, that'd be wild.
He'd be stupid enough to.
Yeah, that's true. He is a dumbass. We can say that for sure. In November of 2012, Sowell himself released a letter through the website Serial Killers Inc.
Oh God.
And the letter was directed to the people of Cleveland. Insane that he thinks any of these people will listen to anything he fucking says. Just insane. So he railed against the former trial judge and the newly elected Cuyahoga County prosecutor, and he addressed the issue of artwork, which he had recently sent to the owner of the website.
Oh boy. Let me guess, he wants his money?
Yeah, I think he wants his money here. On April 5th, 2016, the Ohio Supreme Court heard arguments from Sowell's attorneys and the Cuyahoga County DA, who was representing the state of Ohio, regarding the merits of the closed pretrial suppression hearing. So this is the jury selection and the evidentiary trial, and the defendant's right to a fair and public trial. So his lawyers argued that his Sixth Amendment right was violated by closing his suppression hearing to the press, and that the court should commute his death sentence to life imprisonment as a remedy to the structural error that resulted in the violation.
Okay.
Which is like, all right, interesting that you think that made that big of a difference, but
I mean, at this point, like I said, they're just trying to save his life, which I don't think is worth saving. But that's
no, I don't think it's worth saving. And I guess these procedures exist in the law for people who are truly falsely accused.
right. And I agree with it at that point, but this one's kind of open and shut, I think.
Yeah, it is, but unfortunately the way the law works is that the law has to give everyone the benefit of the doubt.
Right. Which, yeah, innocent until proven guilty. Right.
Absolutely. So one of their other arguments was that they said the counsel had made errors in the initial trial. So they urged the Ohio Supreme Court to send the case back to Cuyahoga County for a retrial. They thought that was the way he could get an actual fair trial, which I don't know why he thinks he's going to get anything different, but
yeah, right.
They're just throwing it at a wall, seeing what sticks.
Which is what they're paid to do. Yes.
It is what they're paid to do. That's their job. The state argued that if his Sixth Amendment right was violated by the closed pretrial hearing, it would not have affected the outcome of the trial anyway, because the evidence was overwhelming, and that Sowell's attorneys were the ones who asked for the jury selection to be done privately to start with. The state also said that Sowell has never denied his guilt, even though he literally pled not guilty, but all right. So they stated that he never denied his guilt, and that the heinous nature of his crimes, coupled with very little mitigating evidence to deny imposing the death penalty, warrants affirming the death sentence. Which I think is a pretty solid. It's kind of what we were just saying. It's a very open and shut case. It's very clear that he did this.
Right.
And it's heinous, and he doesn't deserve to walk the world.
No, absolutely not. I wouldn't want him anywhere near me or the people I care about, or anybody
Exactly.
for that matter.
Exactly. I don't want him in this world. On December 8th, 2016, the Ohio Supreme Court rejected the appeal, affirming his aggravated murder convictions and his death sentence. So he has his charges back. So in May 2017, he appeals again, which is crazy how they haven't, actually set him to execute by now. But so he appeals again to the U.S. Supreme Court, and they choose not to hear him.
Oh, wow.
Love to see it. Then in February 2018, so the next year, the Ohio Supreme Court denied his request to reopen his appeal. So they're having no more of it.
Yeah, they're kind of done with it. And
he's kind of going back down court now. He was going up, and now he's going back down to smaller courts.
Right, and this is
going to talk to anybody who will listen to him.
Right, and it's funny because I had to kind of do the math in the years. This is Obama's administration too. So if he's not getting listened to then, he certainly is not going to get any better for him after 2020.
Certainly not. So speaking of 2020, in May 2020, the state of Ohio's 8th District Appellate Court denied his appeal as well. So everyone is denying this appeal. And you would think that he would get the hint.
No, clearly not.
Clearly not. However, on January 21st, 2021, Sowell was transferred to the Franklin Medical Center in Columbus so that he could begin to receive end-of-life care for an unspecified terminal illness.
Oh, wow.
So
After
looks like
all
he's
that,
gonna
he's
die
going to
anyway.
die anyway.
He's going to die anyway. So the next month, on February 8th, he died in prison.
Wow.
How anticlimactic.
I know, right? I wanted the state to take him. I'm
Yeah,
disappointed.
so most of the victims' families feel that no justice was ever found.
Well, yeah, no kidding.
He was allowed to just dawdle about and appeal endlessly. And yeah, it was tragic and no real closure for the family.
Yeah, so that's why I still hold to, if it's beyond a reasonable doubt that somebody's guilty, do it as quickly as possible. As long as that's it. It's open and shut. Like there's no doubt that this guy did it. He shouldn't have been allowed to do all that. And I think Texas is the state with that kind of fast lane for that death penalty in those cases. And in some cases, I agree with their policy. Whatever. I generally stand on the liberal side of arguments, but I know that's not a very liberal stand. But someone like him didn't deserve to stay around that long.
Right. It's hard to say. After his initial conviction in December 2011, his former residence was demolished by the order of the city, which I think is appropriate.
Agreed.
Yeah. On July 16th, 2021, ground was broken for the Garden of 11 Angels. So there was a memorial on that former property, and it was dedicated on November 6th, 2021.
That's cool. If I'm ever in the Cleveland area, maybe I'll stop there, and that'd be really cool to see.
Yeah, pay respects. So with that is the case of Anthony Sowell, also known as the Cleveland Strangler.
Right, and for us, it's the deadly sin of sloth tonight.
It is.
And
he lazy motherfucker.
Exactly. Even in his appeals, he was lazy as fuck.
Yeah, literally. He just kept not coming with new arguments, just kept appealing and
yeah, like it's so that guy, I didn't like when we were discussing cases and we decided that would be the one for Sloth. I didn't realize how perfectly he personified Sloth. Like, holy shit.
For real.
I'm just going to sit here and let my lawyers do all the work.
Literally.
God, that guy, what a scumbag.
He's disgusting, and I'm glad he's dead.
Yeah, agreed. Although it would have been better if there was justice, but at least he's not here anymore.
At least he's not here, and the families don't have to live knowing that he still walks this earth. Final thoughts?
It's my line.
Well, it's my case.
My final thoughts are, as a society, we need to take these type of cases more seriously. Police should have taken him. I don't care what the race or the demographic or the physical location are. We need to do better taking care of one another. And this is a perfect example of us basically considering groups of people to be below our need for attention. And
absolutely.
That upsets me a lot, because you had, Gabby Petito, she was missing for, far less time, and the whole country was on alert.
Yeah, everybody knew about it.
Everybody. So this is just a prime example. And I'm not taking anything away from the Gabby Petito case. That was a tragic story, but this is 11 tragic stories that went under the radar. And it wasn't until one person got away. It's crazy.
Right. And when one is ignored, it means so many more become victims.
Exactly. Jameson?
This guy is a complete heinous asshole, and just like with all the horrible people we cover, it's shocking to see what he did and how long he got away with it, and mind-blowing, the whole thing.
Yeah.
When we were talking about how many people go missing in Ohio earlier.
Oh, did you look it up?
So based on the 2022 clearinghouse documents, 20,617 people went missing.
Wow, in 1 year?
In 1 year.
That's a shitload.
That's 1,603 more than the year before. Now, out of that total, 15,555 were missing children.
Wow. I
Wow.
mean, yeah, we've talked about missing children before and how, even
Right.
a child that, runs away briefly. If you call the police and you file a missing children's.
Yeah, the Amber Alert, they should be taken a lot more serious, but I still think missing adults should also be taken serious.
Oh,
Absolutely.
of course. Yeah.
There's no reason to not take that seriously. Wow. Well, good job, Joyous. I appreciate that. That was a good time. I mean, it was a
Yeah.
brutal time, but it was a
Yeah,
good
you
time.
loved that, huh?
Yeah, that was I have nothing. I'm drawing a blank on witty things to say right there.
All right. Well, thanks. Thanks for listening to this story. May all the families find peace.
Yes, 100%. We should say that. It's funny. You say that almost every episode, and it's something I think we should all be saying because those families, they're never like I can't imagine they're ever really going to find peace, but hopefully they can find some solace and some, I don't know, it's a peace. There's no
That's
other
all we
word
can
for it.
hope for them.
Yeah. But thank you guys for joining us for day 3 of our 7 Deadly Sins marathon countdown to Halloween. We will see you
Yeah.
tomorrow because I'll be presenting yet another case. This one will be about the deadly sin of wrath. So that'll be fun.
I'm sure
Nice.
that'll be interesting.
That's right. Yeah. So we'll see you guys tomorrow night. I am Janice Dead,
I'm Jameson Dead.
And I'm Joyous Dead.
and we'll have a good night, guys.
Happy Halloween.